I don't want that helpless feeling of feeling like I'm on the field. Not every game is going to be a 100-yard game or 150, 200-yard game, but I want to feel like I can impact the game every time I touch the field.
Wow, after all the hype and all the promos, Davante Adams' debut with the New York Jets was an absolute disaster. We're going to break down this primetime game, what went wrong, and what we can expect for Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Will they continue to go downhill? Sunday Night Football in front of the world to see. We saw Davante Adams suit up in that Jets uniform. You could see their own Twitter page hype up this guy going through the tunnel, getting ready to have his first game with Aaron Rodgers. This made all of us, anybody who even was initially skeptical, start to think, wow, are they going to pull this off? Are the Jets going to turn a corner after starting off 2-4 now that they have Davante Adams, now that they have fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, and now have the interim? That's what we all thought when we saw this promo and saw this hype. And it was not the only hype that we've seen from the Jets about Davante Adams. Even going into this game, you had Aaron Rodgers somewhat hype up this move. He had Davante Adams with him on the Pat McAfee show and had a lot of us thinking, wow, have these guys been scheming this the whole time? Is this just what Aaron Rodgers needed in order to turn the corner for the New York Jets? Is everything going to be well? Unfortunately, things somehow got even worse. Look, I feel bad for Jets fans, but we got to throw the salt on the wound. These guys thought they literally robbed the Raiders, robbed the NFL, are going to get Davante Adams and just be great. And even these two dudes in particular, they really have just been loving on each other, talking about how this is absolutely amazing. You even had Davante Adams at his first press conference with the New York Jets pretty much say in a nice way that he left the Raiders because they're trash and don't have the right quarterback for him.
Just having the confidence that I'll be able to make some plays and change the game, if need be, versus getting out there on the field and feeling like, we need too many things to go right in order for me to be successful.
But now he has his perfect QB, and you even had the broadcast on NBC talk about how Davante and Aaron Rodgers now live together, they eat together, they drive to work together and prepare together. They're just stuck with each other neck and neck like a married couple. Well, I think they're going to go ahead and go to work like a married couple, but they're also going to argue and fight like a married couple. These guys are driving back together to the same crib right now to talk about this humiliating 37-15 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, people were rightfully skeptical about the Davante Adams trade. I thought they would do well and do better than they did tonight, but originally it was kind of shocking to see when the trade happened. The Jets traded for Davante Adams literally the next morning after they lost to the Buffalo Bills. You would think, whoa, you fire a head coach, you lose on primetime to a division rival, the first place actually in the AFC East, Buffalo Bills. Why would you trade for Davante Adams right after that? That's not the type of move you usually make when you're losing and firing people. Not only did they lose against the Buffalo Bills last week before the Davante Adams trade, but you had Aaron Rodgers pretty much throw wide receiver Mike Williams, the veteran former Charger, under the bus when he was asked about the game-ending interception for the Jets against the Bills. He pretty much said that Mike Williams ran the wrong route.
So I'm looking at Allen. He puts his hand up, three guys go with him. So I'm throwing a no look to the red line. And when I just peek my eyes back there, he's running an inbreaker. So it's got to be down the red line.
So Jets lose to the Bills on prime time. After the game, Rodgers blames Mike Williams for the game-ending interception. Then they trade for Davante Adams the next morning. And then we find out right after they trade for Davante Adams that Mike Williams is on the trade block and they are making him available for trade. Basically saying that Davante Adams is the replacement for Mike Williams. And you even had Mike Williams take a couple personal days off after this news. I'm sure this guy was bummed out. And it was actually pretty awkward that we saw him in this game. Keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers apparently met with Jets owner Woody Johnson the night before head coach Robert Saleh was fired. But Woody Johnson claims they did not talk about the head coach, and Aaron Rodgers' conversation with the Jets owner had nothing to do with Saleh being fired. And that sounds a little baloney because Aaron Rodgers has been able to get everything he wants with the New York Jets. He's been able to get all the players he wants, all the receivers he wants, the specific guys, former Packers and friends who he wants. Offensive coordinator like Nathaniel Hackett, he was able to get that. And now he was able to maybe allegedly get the head coach fired and also allegedly, pretty obviously, get Davante Adams via trade in the middle of the season while you're going 2-4. They were really expecting this game to be huge and turn everything around. And that is why it was absolutely embarrassing to see from the very first drive, after all the hype, after we saw the Pittsburgh Steelers able to march down the field and get the field goal, the Jets instantly went 3-and-out. One of those interceptions seemed to be a miscommunication drop with Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. Now, on one level, obviously, we're expecting too much of these guys, expecting them to immediately hit the ground running. But these guys have known each other for a long time. Davante Adams claims he knows the scheme really well, and they never really picked up and got going afterwards. You see, Garrett Wilson, the now number 2 wide receiver since Davante Adams is clearly number 1, he's been receiving advice from Davante Adams on the sideline, and Garrett Wilson had a rough game. We're going to get into that into more detail, but I was just thinking when I saw this during the game, this Davante coaching up Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Garrett Wilson respects this guy, but isn't this kind of awkward? You were the number 1 wide receiver on the team, you being Garrett Wilson, and now this random dude who apparently was only randomly supposed to come here within the last few weeks due to the trade talks and trade requests, this guy just comes out of nowhere and is pretty much your boss because he's buddies with Aaron Rodgers and he's a vet. I just think it's kind of awkward. I wonder if this made some of the vibes and the awkward energy throughout the game more prevalent. Aaron Rodgers even admitted after the game that the Jets felt flat before the game and even at halftime.
I mean, I just felt like the energy, and it starts with me, the energy, for whatever reason, at halftime was a little flat. I felt like it was flat before the game too. I mean, Sunday Night Football.
To me, that's a big concern when your team seems flat right before this first game, because if anything, you're supposed to have the most morale. You're supposed to have all the momentum if you're the Jets right now, because the locker room supposedly got everything they wanted. They got the head coach fired, who clearly was maybe a problem, and they got Davante Adams. But maybe this is something that only Aaron Rodgers wanted, and the rest of the guys maybe aren't 100% bought in on these rash decisions. I will admit, I always thought the Davante Adams and Rodgers thing would take some time, but I thought it would eventually click in the second half. Even during this game, during the first quarter, you saw the Jets march down the field and get a touchdown with Breece Hall. And that made you start to think, okay, maybe this thing is really going to work out. Maybe Davante Adams is just going to continue to run these pretty awesome routes and just connect with Aaron Rodgers. And you saw him get at least 3 catches for 30 yards. And I know it's sad because these would be the only catches that he got throughout the game. Davante Adams had 0 catches in the second half. But in that first half and in that first quarter specifically, you can kind of see where this will eventually work out. But I think it's a little too late to work out because now the Jets are 2-5. What's crazy about this game is in the second quarter with less than 6 minutes to go, it just felt like the Jets were going to win this game. They were able to march down the football field, get a touchdown, and also grab a 2-point conversion. And I remember when Garrett Wilson caught this 2-point conversion, him celebrating with Davante Adams, that made me start to think in that moment, okay, this is going to work out. Him coaching him up, I like this. This is going to be very beneficial for the New York Jets. Maybe they're going to shock everybody and run the freaking table here. But the very next offensive drive for the Jets was an absolute disaster. And this was one moment when it was really all on Aaron Rodgers here. The Jets had the chance to put together a 2-minute drive. Aaron Rodgers had to air it out on 2nd and 4. It's not like you need a Hail Mary here. You just need 4 yards to go for the first down. It's under 2 minutes. I get it, but you still don't have to force anything. And Aaron Rodgers threw a pass that was just too short, intended for Garrett Wilson, easily picked off by the undrafted free agent Bishop of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this was really the turning point in the game. Aaron Rodgers, even after the game, talked about the fact that he felt the momentum drop after this interception.
It was a bad throw. I should just dumped underneath that play. For whatever reason, just changed the entire energy, changed the game.
In my opinion, the reason why it was huge is because it was 15-6 in this moment, and Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to instantly get a touchdown after this interception by Aaron Rodgers, making the score 15-13 at halftime, putting them back in this game when it felt like for a moment when it was 15-6 that the Jets could maybe run away with this. The second half is when everything fell apart. Like we mentioned earlier, Davante Adams would not have a catch in the second half. The Jets would not score a single point in the second half. This was an absolute disaster. And you started to see their defense really let up and allow the Pittsburgh Steelers to run the football all over them. It was absolutely embarrassing. And now the memes are writing themselves. Davante Adams, old team 2-5, new team 2-5. Did the guy really upgrade? The guy said, I need to get the hell out of here. The Raiders are a disaster. And look, I'm not going to lie, the Raiders are a disaster, obviously, even though they are my team. But you're joining the New York Jets. You're not really joining a team that's just completely clear of all dysfunction. You are joining a team that is run by Aaron Rodgers and it's not being run successfully. It would be one thing if Aaron Rodgers choosing this guy to be the play caller, choosing this guy to be the coach, choosing this guy to sign to the team. It would be one thing if all of Aaron Rodgers' decisions were working out and they ended up winning games and they ended up dominating. Yes, that would be great. But instead, it's completely backfiring. And now Davante Adams is pretty much right where he left off. And the New York Jets are arguably even worse than they were without Aaron Rodgers. This is a crazy thing to point out. Through 7 games in 2023, after Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles and the Jets were with Zach Wilson, they were 4-3. Now they are 2-5. The defense has gotten worse and the offense has not gotten any better. I just wonder if maybe firing, that defensive-minded head coach who used to be the D coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, I wonder if firing him has had a negative impact on the Jets defense. Isn't that, that's just something that seems quite obvious, right? It's quite obvious. And even though Davante Adams is a brand new player on the Jets, has only been there like a week, apparently he knows the whole story of this team the entire year.
Whatever it was, we just didn't execute, didn't finish, and that's been the underlying thing with kind of this team this year. And obviously just getting here, but hoping that I can do something to be able to change that.
You can see Davante Adams kind of catch himself. That's been the underlying thing with this team this year. Obviously, I just got here, right? Yeah, obviously you just got here, but somehow you've been knowing the story about this team the entire year. I'm sure the guy has known for quite some time that he was going to join the Jets, so he knows the theme, and he's probably talked about some of these disappointing losses that keep popping up with Aaron Rodgers and the offensive side of the football. The media is pissing off Aaron Rodgers. He could not hold back after this game.
How do you get everybody to keep the belief in? It seems like a lot of the same mistakes.
Stop listening to you guys. Number one. Number two, got to be accountable. I got to play better. That's the key. I got to play better. We got to find a way to run the ball better so we can action pass.
Rodgers is blaming the media and tacitly blaming himself. He did say a couple of times, I got to be better. But that last comment where he says we got to run the football better so we can actually throw, to me, it just shows like he's not taking full responsibility here about the fact that the Jets did not score in the second half. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to put up 37 against supposedly a great Jets defense. And I'm wondering how old this is going to get if you're on the Jets right now. You got Rodgers criticizing people, saying we need to be better, we need to do better, we need to be focused, we need to block out all the noise. Meanwhile, he's the guy making all these big time decisions and things are just not working out. And the memes are writing themselves. People are just laughing about this. Aaron Rodgers is now scheming how to add the real key missing piece in Jordy Nelson after watching Davante Adams drop a target and run a wrong route. It just seems like Rodgers, and even though I've been someone who's been rooting for this guy the entire time, I have been a low-key Rodgers fan, especially with his stint with the New York Jets, but we're blaming the offensive coaches, we're blaming the head coach, we're blaming certain wide receivers like Mike Williams, and when all these things are not working out, what is left to blame? At a certain point, you just have to admit that some of your decisions did not work out, and I think the worst decision they made was letting go of Robert Saleh. What did that really do for this team at all, besides make things more awkward? Garrett Wilson had the most viral mistake that happened in the second half of the game, the second interception for Aaron Rodgers. When it bounced off his chest, he was wide open, leading to another interception by Bishop, the undrafted free agent rookie for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This dude was obviously bummed out because of this, and he took full responsibility.
I feel like that was the reason we lost the game, at the end of the day, and can't happen. It's a terrible play. It's it's like a culmination of me getting bad habits, not attacking the ball in the game, and all of a sudden I got to fix it, you know.
Garrett Wilson is being hard on himself, but I don't think that's to blame. I don't think that's the reason why they lost this game. In this first half, man, they had multiple punts, multiple 3-and-outs. We mentioned the interception that Aaron Rodgers threw that set up a touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers, although Garrett Wilson's interception did lead to a touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers too, as well in the second half. But Davante Adams was also lackluster, and Garrett Wilson's just not the only reason why they did not do well in this game. They just were not as explosive. It just seemed difficult for the Jets to move the football, despite the fact that they have all of these weapons, and they've talked about it. Davante Adams was even asked about, I'm not going to play the clip, but he was saying that it pisses you off even more knowing that we have all these types of weapons and it comes up short. And he was talking about being impressed by all the playmakers they have in the huddle. They have tons of playmakers on the offensive side of the football. Not a great O-line, but still, they have enough playmakers, and they just couldn't move the football at all, especially when Aaron Rodgers was pressured. And you're going to be pressured in the modern NFL, but when he was pressured, I felt like the guy was not willing to hang in there in the pocket that much and take some big hits to complete some throws, and you saw them just struggle to move the chains, especially in the first half. And then when it got to the second half, it was already too late. They were playing catch up, making turnovers, missing field goals, and it was already too late for them to even get an opportunity to score. And now the Jets are the absolute laughingstock, especially Davante Adams, who has been complaining about the Raiders for a long time. And look, granted, he has legitimate complaints about the Raiders. The Raiders are a complete dumpster fire right now, but when we're talking about this season alone in isolation, it's just pretty funny because the Jets instantly blew it against the Pittsburgh Steelers with Davante Adams, with all the hype, with all the noise about the Raiders being a disaster and Davante needing to get the hell out of there and have a real QB throw him the football. Well, a real QB threw you the football and it led to 3 catches for 30 yards. That's what you got. The jokes are just too easy. You have the aggregators saying Davante Adams already looks like he wants to leave New York. Oh, just that quickly after one game. And you had even everybody just fixating on this guy on the sideline. What are his facial expressions? Reacting to George Pickens of the Steelers making a beautiful catch to pretty much seal the game against the Jets in the second half. So everybody's laughing at the Jets right now because we've been hearing about this Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers reunion for so long, and it led to 30 yards. It did not spark anything for the New York Jets, and it's actually the least amount of yards in a game from Davante Adams to Rodgers since 2017. Remember, his last year with Aaron Rodgers was the 2021 season, so really historically bad, and this was also a big game for the New York Jets. If they're going to try to get back into this somehow, this was the game to do it, and now you have the Buffalo Bills, who sit with a 5-2 record, first place in the division, and the Jets are 2-5 and have lost 4 games in a row. And does it get easier? Yeah, it gets a little bit easier against the New England Patriots, tough against the Texans. I'm not confident they're going to beat the Cardinals or the Colts right now. I don't think you can say that. Not after they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, not after they lost to the Denver Broncos in that bad weather game. I get it. I give you that on the Vikings, the Buffalo Bills. I understand losing to them and the Niners, but the Jets have had somewhat of a tough schedule this year, but they have not played good football overall. We haven't seen Aaron Rodgers have a huge game going over 300 yards. That hasn't happened. And now they're expected to pretty much run the table. They really cannot lose more than 3 games if they want to make the playoffs. Some teams get in with a 9-8 record. 10-7, I think, makes you locked in to get into the playoffs for sure. So they really can't lose more than 2 games for sure if they want the highest chance probable. I think these next 4 games are going to be tough. I think they will beat the New England Patriots, but I could see them losing literally every single one of these games besides against the Patriots, besides against the Miami Dolphins. And honestly, the Jags have been bad and so have the Rams, but the Rams are getting Cooper Kupp back. Jacksonville's been winning lately. This is not going to be an easy road for the New York Jets at all. However, I do think that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams will start clicking eventually and put together better numbers throughout the season. I just don't think it's going to lead to the playoffs this year. I said that from the beginning. I don't see how they make the playoffs this year at all. This seems like a move for next year. So hopefully Aaron Rodgers comes back and doesn't retire next year for the New York Jets, because I think that's their best bet at making a run. I don't think it's going to happen this year. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Like this video if you have not yet. Subscribe. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.